Hello Clash fans, Trample Damage coming at you today with a really in-depth discussion of the current version. Ooh, glad I saw that. Activate. I've had a couple times now where my first attack of the day resulted in a failure because I did not update my troops. So the army composition I'm using, it is a Spirit Walk, Root Rider, Valkyrie combination, but there are a couple things I do a little bit differently than some of the other attacks that I see, and I wanted to share those because I've been meeting with a lot of success recently. I haven't made any attacks today, but 320 in Legend League yesterday, and if I add 120 back to this, so I was at 5836 yesterday. I ended at 5836, so started the day around the high 5700s because I made some trophies yesterday. I wanted to share how I am doing this a little bit differently in a way that I honestly feel like is a little bit easier to replicate. So I'm going to start with this one here, attack against Lamb. The general gist that I'm going for here is I'm using up to 5 invisibility spells, but I often wind up only using 2 or 3 of them when I start my Royal Champion charge. I'm trying to carve out a portion of the base with the RC, and then a portion of the base with the King and the Queen, and then I basically just send everything else straight up the middle. And I am using some Super Barbarians to support the King. You won't see that quite as much in this particular attack, but we'll see that in some of the other attacks. So I am using the Royal Champion, and I usually prefer, I will tell you this, I prefer to come at the Town Hall and get the Town Hall down a little bit sooner, and then I would prefer not to face the Clan Castle troops directly on my way in to the Town Hall, just because it seems to slow me down more. So I'm going to put the Royal Champion in here, and I am using the Rocket Spear with her. I know a lot of people use the Haste Vial and the Electro Boots. Obviously the Electro Boots, the Town Hall 17 defining equipment, as Congressman Coolrick pointed out on the recording that we did of the Reddit Talks Clash podcast, which, check out my podcast, Inside Clash with Trample Damage. It's a great podcast. So we're doing some normal stuff here of carving out an opportunity to get some defenses down, because it's all about the pathing for the defenses. I don't normally do this, but I did send in a Super Barbarian just to take out a little bit of trash building on the outside there. And then at this point here, I get that down. My Fox has been eliminated, and I'm just going to go ahead and snatch the Royal Champion back out of here. And what we have is a beautiful monument of decorations. Then the Queen is going to come in through here. Now, if I have invisibility spell towers that I'm up against, I try to make sure those get triggered now. But without those, otherwise I'll just send it usually through the diagonal, hitting as many buildings as possible. Barbarian King comes to her side. And here's one of the big differences. I don't use the Siege Barracks to funnel. I just use my Queen and my King and some Super Barbarians instead. The King is, of course, using the Spiky Ball and the Earthquake Boots because it's so good for being able to carve out a side compartment like this. I sent a couple Super Barbarians. My Super Wall Breaker got torched, and now what you'll see is there's 2 different things I'll do. When a very clear funnel has been set on the other side, I will often wind up sending in the Root Riders, the Balloons, the Siege Barracks, the Warden, the Apprentice Warden, and eventually all the Valkyries. A lot of times I'll put them near the Queen when I can tell that none of the troops are going to go that direction. But if there's not necessarily a super tight funnel over here, I'll deploy them opposite the Queen just to give her more time to get that stuff taken down. But I knew all this stuff is going to be down, so I went ahead and everything. It is Root Riders first, 3 Balloons, 4 Healers, and then my Siege Barracks, my Warden, my Apprentice Warden, and then I usually just jam in the Valkyries because I know that they're not going to go anywhere except eventually in toward the Town Hall. When I have enemy heroes on the outside like this, sometimes I will send a Headhunter in to help out, but I like to save them more for the backside of the attack. Half the time I forget to send my Royal Champion back in until a little bit of time has elapsed, but I usually send the Royal Champion right back in with them. You can see the Barbarian King used his Earthquake Boots right here, opened up some of these walls, took that stuff out, so now everybody is just running straight through the core, and I usually get the Town Hall down before I have to deal with the enemy Clan Castle troops. And here's where, when I do have, I love coming out of the backside of this with a Rage spell, 2 freeze, and an invisibility, and this is a common thing I'll do. I'll drop the invisibility to protect a bunch of my troops from a lot of stuff that's happening on the base. They move their way through there. If I have already triggered the Royal Champion's ability, then great. If I haven't triggered it, then a lot of times I'll trigger it when she's in the core. I do have another freeze spell here, and then at this point there's just so much left over that I can usually overwhelm the base. I try to save a couple of Super Barbarians to help, and the Headhunters, as you can often see, the Headhunters will help with the cleanup efforts. This is how I am doing my army. I'm going to go ahead and show a couple more of these attacks just to kind of walk through, and I'm going to show some that started out poorly but maybe ended up okay just because of the practice, because this takes a lot of practice. This one here, I know I came in on the bottom side with the Royal Champion, And ideally, we can come in behind the fire spitters. I prefer not to eat fire spitter targets or fire spitter damage on my way in, and I will ideally come in from behind them. I also love to be able to get the monolith down. This is a very common thing that I'll wind up doing here, where I will trigger the Royal Champion's seeking or her rocket spear and just use all of my invisibility spells as necessary until I get whatever key defense is down. And remember, the most important thing here is I'm just going for pathing. I don't want anybody to run around this side of the base. So now I'll move over here to where the queen is going to wind up coming in along with the barbarian king. I like to set the queen off to where she's more likely to move towards the roots and the Valkyries as opposed to moving toward the king. But honestly, I'll take what I can get as long as my queen will send my king this direction. So king is heading down. I actually think I deployed my troops a little earlier in this one, but we'll see. So king is heading down this direction. A lot of times that super wall breaker only does something like this, where it just gets into one of these compartments. And now, since they're working, so here's where, like I was saying before, my queen doesn't necessarily have the greatest funnel set here already. And if I set my troops on this side, sometimes those root riders might just follow these defenses, which I don't want. So I went ahead and just sent my root riders, my Valkyries. It's the same thing. Roots, balloons, healers, siege barracks, warden, apprentice warden. It's basically everything. You can see here at this point, we're relatively early on in the attack. I have usually 1 or 2 headhunters left, up to 6 or 7 super barbarians left. Both my rage spells, 2 freeze, a poison, which I never use on ice golems. That's something I figured out. Like, it's a waste. Just save it for the enemy heroes. So now I've got a nice path. Sometimes I will lose the Valkyries, which it looks like I'm losing some of them here, but I get enough walls that are down, and I've got some ice golems, and I've poisoned. There's a you can see a furnace in there, so I'll use the poison spell on the furnace if it looks like there's one in there. Trigger the Eternal Tome. I got my queen and some of the troops. Now the Valkyries and the P.E.K.K.A.s in this one went around the outside, but it's basically that same general setup. I think I use my invisibility spells and my freeze to keep my royal champion working on the town hall, and then by the time they get through that, it's just the push toward the back end of the base, and we are good to go on this one. Another one we're going to show. So I'm going to show you 2 more, and then we're going to show you, maybe I'll just show you 1 more. This is a very common base layout that you wind up seeing, and I see a lot of people with their spirit walks come in toward a side like this, where they're taking one of these compartments, but I actually prefer to just take the corner because it sets a much nicer funnel. If I can speed this along here, it sets a much nicer funnel for my root riders and my Valkyries to come through, and sometimes I will wind up just stopping my royal champion and using her ability. At this point, actually, I pulled her out because I didn't want that fire spitter to go down, because I wanted that fire spitter to be something that the root riders go for and then sort of segue naturally to the town hall. Again, nice clear chunk of the base has been taken out over here. Archer Queen going to come in. Frosty is very important for her to help survive situations like this, where she is up against, okay, you can see, I want to show you both of these things at the same time. Well, you see, Frosty is very helpful in stopping a corner ricochet cannon from taking out the Archer Queen. So hero equipment I didn't mention already. The giant arrow and the healer puppet for her, dual tome for the warden, and we already looked at the royal champions stuff. So here we go. All the root riders, the balloons, the healers, siege barracks, Grand Warden, Apprentice Warden, sometimes a couple of Super Barbarians. I went ahead and sent in the rest of the Valkyries because they're not going anywhere. And at this point, my Barbarian King has plowed through enough stuff over here that even if he had gone down, from this scatter shot, the troops would have then wanted a path toward the town hall, but the queen and the king do wind up, managing to take out those buildings before. Oh, my queen's down. My queen's toast. But now my root riders are heading in toward the core, and they do have the help of the Valkyries, and this is frequently when I will wind up using my Eternal Tome, not just to get through some of the damage from the lava that the town hall is spewing out at us, but also to help protect against stuff like this. The fire spitters, a lot of these defenses are just converging in the core, so I want that healing tome active. I want the healers protected as much as possible from any air bombs that are going to be in the core, and then we just kind of run through. I did use my free spells and my invisibility spells with the Royal Champion to help take down the rest of those defenses over there. It's a very powerful, very effective army, but it does require a lot of practice. I'm going to show you a couple of attacks that have gone a little bit sideways. This attack here against the Birdman from Sons of Guns. I decided that I was going to try and carve out some of this stuff over here and then maybe bring my queen in down on this side and then path in toward this direction. That was the original plan. But then I sometimes wind up in these situations where my Royal Champion does something that maybe I was not expecting her to do, and which is always an issue. I've seen one of my clan teammates, C-Man, he's awesome. He's like, oh, I use invisibility spells to redirect my royal champion. Like, I'm not doing that. I just kind of hope my fox doesn't die, and I keep my royal champion alive as much as possible. And then if she's going a direction I don't love, I will wind up just triggering her ability. So I triggered the rocket spear, and she started going after the town hall here. I was like, oh man, this is awesome. She's gonna be able to take that town hall down. This is cool. Then I'll just recall her back out of there. But oh, she's about to go down, and the town hall was still up. But it was a small enough amount of hit points that it had left that I thought my giant arrow could take it. So I pivoted because I had cleared out most of these defenses, and I thought I'll just give this a shot. And then same general thing, Barbarian King on the side there. You know, we already know what the Roots and the Valks are going to do, so we see what the King is up to. He just clears out a huge... I don't use the Siege Barracks for funneling for this army because the P.E.K.K.A.s will wind up just going with the rest of the troops and being such a helpful tanking, damage-dealing entity. But the King, with a couple of Super Barbarians, he's usually able to funnel incredibly well, leaving me in a good position. I had another attack here. Let me find this one. Attack against Saltable. Oh, it's this one here. I had my... Oh, this was a weird... I've never seen this layout before, so I just wanted to share. I literally have never seen this layout, and I thought, wow, this is interesting. And I thought the invisibility towers are going to be a pain in the butt. So I decided to take a shot here at getting my Royal Champion in toward the Town Hall. And the way that I chose to do that was by sending her directly at this monolith. And then as soon as she was triggering the invisibility tower, I picked her back up, sent in my queen, sent in my king to let them get starting to work because I figured I'm going to have to take out some of this stuff and I plan to root through here. And then I just sent my royal champion right back in at the monolith and started over with no invisibility spell. And then I thought I would be able to get the town hall down. Now here's a situation where it's possible that the haste vial might have given me more of the value that I needed and have actually taken down the town hall before she expired. But I don't know, we try new things. But honestly, the way this worked out, I think I'd probably do it similarly. If I dropped the freeze earlier, I would have actually taken that down with the royal champion instead of it being something that ended up getting picked up by my root riders. So two more examples of things that kind of went wrong. Oh, this one here. What was this one here? This was... Oh, okay. I started using this Root Rider Valkyrie army with a Zapquake because I faced this base in war. I was like, man, I get Zapquake, all that stuff. I can get both of the Fire Spitters, the Invisibility Tower, the Monolith, and the Multi-Gear Tower with a properly placed set of Lightning and Earthquake. This is the first time I've attacked this layout since switching to the Spirit Walk version, and with two invisibility spell towers, I wasn't entirely sure what to do, so I opted for bringing my Royal Champion on this side. I think I put some Super Barbs to try and do, yeah, some Super Barbs there to funnel. I got my Royal Champion into here, felt like I created enough of a funnel down here, so then I went ahead and scooped her back out. Then up at the top here, I just kind of... This is where I think I should have used my siege barracks up at the top here. I think would have made a difference because I sent in a couple of Valkyries and a Headhunter and some Super Barbs, and I thought, I'm just going to go really aggressively here. But I actually think I would have been better off with the siege barracks. Now, I went too early with my Root Riders and my Balloons and my Healers, my Warden, my Apprentice Warden, my siege barracks, all that stuff. Kind of the same thing that we normally wind up seeing because I wanted to be able to get to the invisibility spell tower before it ended up recharging. But I didn't quite get the pathing that I was looking for because I didn't have all that stuff down here at the top. And we pathed around the town hall, and I did get incredibly lucky to manage to take this town hall down. It was the last building that we got. But sometimes, if you are not going to do, and I point this out, if you don't do a good enough job of funneling, you will wind up losing those troops and rely on a little bit of luck to get it. And then one other example of a problem that I had that I was able to overcome was this one. Okay, so my wife just called and it showed her phone number on there, so I'll obviously edit that out because I just record all this as I'm going live. But this attack was the other one that I had that I made a mistake on. With these town halls on the corner, I love the rocket spear. I can just take this out. I thought, you know what? I could probably get the archer. Probably get my royal champion in there and take the town hall down. So I went for it. I said, yeah, let's go. The royal champion in there, starting to take some stuff. She paths in toward the town hall. No problem. I got plenty of invisibility spells. I was like, got this. That town hall's about to go down. I'm so good. Last one. All right, that thing's done. And I wasn't paying attention. There's like builders. There's two builders in here. So I just thought it was going to be done. Drop my recall. Snatch my royal champion out of there thinking it was done, and it wasn't. So then I went, no. And instead of using the Archer Queen to try and plow through there, I just thought, I'm going to get 2 spars on this one, and that's going to mess up my perfect day. But I just went ahead and I still had an Ice Funnel from the Royal Champion, spammed everybody through. I love seeing a Super Dragon and an Ice Golem because I'm normally able to take that down pretty effectively with the Royal Champion or the Archer Queen moving through here, but ended up stomping this base up pretty well. It's a really good army, and it doesn't have to be as complicated. The Spirit Walk is a little tricky, and I think I'm going to try and do another video on some tips and tricks for the Spirit Walk, but that's it. Try this army out. Bring 5... I don't use an Overgrowth spell. I just never know what I want to do with it. I feel like I sometimes mess up my pathing when I wind up dropping an Overgrowth spell, and then my troops circle back around to the front of a Fire Spitter somehow, or I don't know. I like the 5 invisibility because it gives me a lot of flexibility, not only for keeping the Royal Champion charge alive longer, but also potentially for protecting my troops, whether it's my Archer Queen or my Royal Champion or somebody, sometimes even just a whole cluster of troops as I'm cleaning up. I didn't say it before, but of course, subscribe to the account, like and follow all that stuff, and check out my podcast, Inside Clash. We will check you guys out on the next video.